I'm Officer Calzada with Fort Worth Police Department. We got an active training exercise going on tonight. This is Sunday, September 24th. What I'm going to do is we're going to do this in a two-part series. I'm going to let you know what the citizens should do if they're involved in an active shooter situation. Officer Pollozani here is going to tell you about the exercise that is going on tonight. First off, if you are or do find yourself in an active shooter situation, please don't make yourself a victim. The first thing you need to do is avoid the situation. If you can get away from the general area and be out of the shooter's view, that's what we want you to do. Get away as quick and safely as you can. The second thing to do also is deny. If you can't, if you're locked in an office, if you're locked in a store where you can't get away from the shooter, lock yourself in. Use something to deny access or entrance into the area that you're in. And then third, and what we don't want you to do, but sometimes you will have to, and that is defend. You know, if you find yourself where it's you one-on-one with the shooter, we want you to be able to defend and help us eliminate the threat that might be taking place here. You know, this is a very serious situation that we're all facing. Keep in mind that all active events don't just involve guns. We have a lot that involve knives, other weapons. So I encourage you, if you go visit any of our establishments in this great city, please just keep your head on a swivel. Make sure that you're looking to see if there's any exits. Look for at least 2 exits when you enter a location. Look for a place that you can be able to deny access if it comes to that situation. And then most importantly, always stay alert, watching what's going on. Officer Pollozani is here. We'll answer some questions in a minute. He's going to talk about the exercise that's going on here tonight.
This is another prime example of Fort Worth PD trying to stay with the standards when it comes to active situations. Here tonight we have the West Division officers that normally respond to any type of incidents involving the mall here. So it's a prime example of officers do what they can to try to keep their skills above par, so when they do respond, to make sure that they respond in a manner where they keep the public safe. So here tonight is we got officers from the West Division along with our training division that are collaborative, coming together, partnership with the Hulen Mall to try to get this exercise, so try to make it as realistic as possible. So it's encouraging to see that the departments like us here in Fort Worth are still continuing to train, to prepare ourselves mentally and physically for the job that we can perform, to make sure that everybody here is safe.
Officer Pollozani and I were talking prior to this, and you know, it's not about just the location that we're here in. We want everyone to be safe in any establishment that you may go to here in Fort Worth, and that's why these officers are training. They're training so they got their communication down. They know when and where to be. They, you know, everything's going to be high level and high stress if that kind of a situation breaks out. And what we want to do is make those officers as calm as they can, but most importantly, more as prepared as they can be.
You talked about the mental preparation. Can you sort of expand on that a little bit, and why training leads to better mental preparation when, you know, God forbid, the actual thing happens?
You know, training builds confidence, right? Building, builds that type of sense of that I can perform the job and do the job. So anytime that we get on the training deck, we actually train like it's a real life situation. So in law enforcement, there is no playbook. Every situation, every call is different. So for us to prepare ourselves mentally and physically, we will be that much better to be able to effectively do our job and to make sure that we have a safe city.
What about the specific sort of training scenarios tonight? How many officers are participating? Can you kind of give us an idea of what they're dealing with, what exercises they're actually performing?
Sure, you're going to have to keep in mind that this is West Division. We have the streets to patrol still and keep safe at night. So what they're utilizing is the teams. They're going to be doing several different exercises. They're going to be switching teams out. You're getting different teams that actually work with each other on the same nights, or that are off with each other on the same nights. So they just get used to that pattern of being able to communicate and talk with each other. It makes it really a fluid situation.
You know, tonight's preparation for this training, communication is going to be key. And anytime you get a mass casualty incident that occurs, you can understand that the radio traffic could be overbearing. So the most important thing here tonight is to identify the threat and address it properly, and then start doing your triage of the people that are involved in this incident. So communication is going to be key here, to try to locate the individual that is the actual threat, and then to start assessing the situation and triaging people.
Now, we don't want anything happening, obviously, at this location or in any establishment here in Fort Worth, but this would more than likely be the media staging area, which is why we have you guys here. Yes, we have a lot of stuff taking place on the other side, but it's very active. You know, we can't even go in there with weapons. There's big searches going on in an RV there. after you've taken your weapons off. They search you prior to getting out of the RV. Before you go into this location here, they're searching you again. And once you go inside, they're searching to make sure there's no realistic weapons. The thing is we'd love to have you inside, but like Officer Pollozani stated, this is reality-based training. We need to make it as real as possible. Having camera crews following you and going right in there is not going to make it a reality. And so we'd love to have you guys in there. We'd love to invite you in, but this is as real as it gets.
So it's fair to call this a simulation?
Absolutely.
Does that mean, so you've talked about you have a suspect per se. Do you have people playing victims as well inside?
Yes, we do. We're going to have victims inside that will be role players. We'll have active threats inside. We'll have active threats that are inside as role players, and the officers will be showing up on scene. They'll actually be dispatched out here. So they're not going to be waiting on scene, like just hanging out by the door and, go, 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 go. It's not going to be anything like that. It's going to be as reality. It's going to be as real as possible.
Yeah.
So, Whit, you were talking about the checking everybody. Is that kind of like an extra step? Earlier this year, we had an Everman or a River Oaks officer that was shot in the face during training at a school in Everman. Does that kind of reinstate the, hey, we need to make sure everybody's running either blanks or paintball guns or whatever y'all are using to simulate? Does that kind of reinstate that fact?
It sure does, Michael, because anytime you come into a situation where you're involved in simulations per se, we want to make sure that the officers are equipped with that type of equipment. So triple, quadruple checks are being conducted prior to the officers getting their assignments, prior to them actually responding to the scene. So everything, there's actually safety zones that you cannot cross without, a certain instructor being in there. So safety of the training on deck is paramount, and we stress that every time we train.
It's hard to say what another department will do, and that was a very unfortunate incident. But as far as I can remember, anytime we hit, like he said, the training deck, they check, double check, triple check, and make sure it's the safest environment as possible.
Will MedStar and Fort Worth Fire be responding to add to that realism of bringing out patients and victims and everything to help them get used to something like this, or to practice with them?
So the biggest part in tonight's exercise is stopping the threat and communication and being able to clear in MedStar and Fire when they're able to. You got to understand that when there's an active threat, as much as we want to get medical assistance in there, we can't do that at that time. But keep in mind, that's why our officers are trained. That's why we have a TAC med unit. We have to be able to provide assistance until we can get them in. As a safety precaution, we will have Fire and MedStar here in case anyone might get injured, but that'll be their role for tonight.
And you talked about they're going to be dispatched in. Are they just on normal patrol and they get a call, or they staged somewhere near here and they've got to work their way into wherever the scene is?
They will be staged on the opposite side of the building, so They are going to have to watch out for pedestrians that are coming through as they come to the area. They're going to have to make sure they watch where they park, not in front of doors, different things like that. They're going to be staged off to a separate area. They won't just be roaming around from a certain part of town. We want to keep everything on the grounds here because anybody that is going to see lights and sirens, they're going to think it's a natural emergency. And yes, we've warned the public, but we do want to keep everything here on the grounds.
Gentlemen, did you say that this is just for mostly the Southwest Division that's participating?
Yes, it's going to be mostly the southwest part of Fort Worth. But keep in mind, we're trying to bring officers in from other sides of town. And this is just some of the steps that were taking place to do it in other areas here in Fort Worth.
My bigger question was, is everybody kind of getting a rotation, or is there going to be other locations that you're going to do this for the rest of the department?
As far as rotating throughout the city, that's going to be completely up to our training division. They will make the call on that. Of course, that's the goal. It's train, like we were saying earlier. But to be able to find time to not just patrol the streets and get that training in is just as crucial. And so we're working on that as well.
Will y'all also be will it be strictly Fort Worth responding to this or into this training? Or will like TCSO and neighboring jurisdictions, in case they can get here quicker, there may be another major event going on at that same time. Will that be something y'all will be factoring into?
Right. Keep in mind that we do have radio channels that will communicate with other agencies. And what we're going to do tonight, though, is just keep it within Fort Worth. But we do have our training center in Fort Worth at our headquarters. And we do a lot of multiple agency training together there so we can know how they act. If they come into our city, they know how we're going to respond. If we go into their city, we know how they're going to respond. So it's very educational. All this training is very educational, not just for the officers, but like we said earlier, to be able to communicate with each other in a professional manner.
So this would be more of them getting used to being in a mall environment, of having to deal with items in the middle of the hallway, or dealing with clothes and whatever's in each department store, rather than being in like a school environment, which is, you can do an abandoned building kind of thing for that.
Right, we just want to make sure they're prepared for any kind of a business establishment, so that's why we're going with a large business that we know is closed on a Sunday evening, that security has already cleared out, that we've double and triple checked as well too, to make sure there's no employees or any patrons in the location.
What are you talk about communication and that being the sort of the key component for training. What are the potential barriers that you're trying to sort of train for? You know, is it just radio chatter? Why is that important?
It's very important. You know, officers all the time handle calls and handle emergencies. When you have somebody that's actually injured and you have multiple people that are injured, you know, anybody's stress level is going to go up, even the best trained officers out there. So we want them to be able to stay calm, not yell on the radio. It's hard not to, you know, get your point across. You want everyone to hear what you're saying. But if you can just remain calm and get a pattern going where you keep your blood pressure down and you're able to completely effectively complete the mission while you're still able to communicate. You know, communication is important in everything. I say that with marriage. I say that with talking to your kids, and even especially in a medical emergency and a police emergency, communication is key.
My last question is, what have you guys learned as a department, just unfortunately having to deal with these sorts of situations, and then obviously what happened in Allen earlier this year? I mean, are there best practices or sort of key things that you guys are trying to hit on tonight that you've picked up over the last 5 or 6 years, just because this has become a more common reality?
Yeah, you know, during an active shooter situation or an active threat situation, that's one of the hardest things to pin down, is you don't know where they're going to come from, you don't know where they're going to attack, you don't know the innocent individuals that they're going to try to hurt. The one that just took place in Allen, the guy was, I believe, giving a sticker to a child and just talking to a child, just being that, you know, public representation and professionalism of our department. And all of a sudden it turns into a situation where he had to stop the threat.
Can you just say your name for me and spell it?
Sure. Jimmy Pollozani, JimmyPollozani.
Got it. Anything y'all want to add?
I think it's pretty good.
Works for us.